I had a, seller call me and we're talking, going through some things, get off the phone. And my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and she says, "I hate that phone." And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing?
You can build an empire and still lose what matters most. This is for the entrepreneurs, leaders, and high performers who refuse to sacrifice their family, health, and purpose for success. Welcome to the No Regrets Blueprint.
What is up, friends? It's Matt Levchenko here with the No Regrets Blueprint podcast, and our guest today is the Will Tompkins. Now, Will is a team leader of a real estate team and company out in Peoria, Illinois, the Home Connection. And so I met Will through some mutual connections here at eXp Realty, and Will leads a 20-member team with his wife, which is going to make for some really great conversations around that. Been in the game, been in the real estate industry for the last 20 years. And you have how many children between the two of you now?
We have 5 girls between the two of us.
Okay. So they're both highly active in fitness and teach classes and coaches and trainings. And so today's conversation, we're going to go into all of the good stuff. So Will, let's jump off. So I want to just dive into it. When I had shared with you that we're going to have this conversation, I had put together some questions for you to answer. And one of the first things that you put in the questionnaire is you mentioned a moment when your 13-year-old daughter told you that she hated your phone.
My phone, yes.
Yeah, take us back to that day. What was happening and how did that specific comment come about?
Yeah, so we were at home and it may have been like right around dinner time, before, after, I can't remember exactly, but I remember I had a client call and at the time, I tell you, I pretty much just did all listings, and the days that I didn't have appointments, I spent with my girls, right? That was my time with them. So I didn't run appointments with them. And so it was crazy because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm got this dialed in. I'm spending time with my girls. I don't go on appointments, that work-life balance. And then I had a, seller call me and we're talking, going through some things, get off the phone. And my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and she says, "I hate that phone." And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I realized that this time that I thought was quality time was not quality time. I was, not going on appointments. I was present, yes, but I was taking calls. I was making calls. I was not spending time with them. And so that actually started, and I had been in the business for quite a few years up to that point. So that started a trajectory of, we started setting boundaries at home around the phone. And like one of them was at dinner time, that phone sits on the table, or not even on the table. I set it someplace else. It was face down. It was on silent. And so they did have my undivided time. And it's funny, it got tested, right? When we get set boundaries, they get tested. So it got tested. And so what had happened was I told him, I said, look, and I even had them holding me accountable to some degree. I was like, look, I will not take a phone call while we're at dinner time. This is our time here. And if there's ever a time where it is an emergency, I will let you know that I'm going to have to take a phone call. Right. And so that was our common practice. And they really appreciated me having that communication with them, giving them a heads up if something did come in. And I did call, because a lot of times, the calls didn't come in during dinner time, but just in case. Well, there was one time it didn't, or I forgot to tell them. And so we're actually out to eat with another family member. And it was just this crazy thing with some multiple offer situation. Anyway, I had to take this call. I really, really had to take this call. And it's, most of the time things can wait. This one really couldn't wait. I looked at my daughters and I said, "Hey, I got to take this call. Is it okay?" I set the boundary with them, right? And so I didn't want to just say, "Hey, I'm going to take this call," when I'm breaking my own boundary, right? I didn't want to teach them that. So I asked their permission. "Is this okay?" They said no. And so then I'm thinking, okay, I'm a father. I'm also an agent, and I'm going to drop the ball in one of these two places. And I didn't take the call. And to be honest with you, my daughters felt so valued and loved from that. It really changed our relationship. I'm actually glad that this did happen. I get a little choked up just thinking about it. I'm glad it happened. As far as a real estate agent goes, it was tough. Like, I didn't take that call when I needed to take that call. It did cause problems later on in the transaction over the next couple of days. And, but the thing is, it did work out. I'm still in business. Everybody was good. And my relationship with my kids are great. They're actually great. And it was through setting some of those boundaries.
That's such a huge gift, lesson, aha, realization, where we think worst case scenario is going to happen, and then on the other side of it, it wasn't necessarily worst case scenario, right? Someone once shared with me, as entrepreneurs, we're driven by juggling, wanting to keep all the balls in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I made a post recently about I really feel activated when I've got all these projects going. And yet a coach early on shared with me, he goes, you got to be careful. Yeah, the balls that you're juggling, some of them are made of glass and some of them are rubber. And the ones that are made of rubber are usually business and other people's stuff. And then the ones that made of glass are the ones that are most precious and fragile, which is our relationships, our family. And so we can't let those hit the ground. The others, they will bounce. We can pick them up and keep them juggling again, even if we drop them at some point. So, man, first of all, seeing you follow through with that story, and then empowering your kids to say, no, it's not okay, and no, please don't take that call because you promised, and then you fulfilling that. I mean, that's huge. That is huge.
Yeah. It did. It really changed our relationship after that. And my daughter works for me now. So I know many agents who their kids hate the real estate industry because their parent was never around. And when they were around, it was like me, they were constantly on the phone, and it's oh, I got to get this deal. I got to get this deal. Because they have the scarcity mindset. We don't know when it's going to stop. Right. And the kids grow up hating it. And now my daughter's working for me because of those boundaries. She actually loves it. She loves being a part of it now. Right. And so it's great.
That's so cool. Yeah. Just because you're there doesn't mean you're there.
Mm-hmm.
So take us back to the beginning. How did you meet Hannah? How did you get it? This is a cool story. You shared this with me a couple of weeks ago whenever we were in Peoria doing that event. Tell everybody that's listening, catch us up to speed on kind of the story, how the home connection came to be.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting. I've been in real estate for a long time. I was actually on a team as a listing agent, a very high level listing agent. And so I knew all of the agents, and we're in a kind of a small market, about 800 agents in our board. And so I knew all of the agents, and so she came in, wrote an offer, and we were doing a deal together. And the way she handled that deal, and I knew she was new, right? Because I had never worked with her before. And I started asking her some questions. I'm like, okay, you did this, you did that. Right away, I'm like, who told you to do that? Right. And she's like, well, nobody. She just thought that was the right thing to do. I'm like, wow. I was like, okay. And I told her this, I say, and she doesn't remember it. I've asked her, she doesn't remember me saying it, but I say, you're going to be one of the best buyer. She's a buyer agent. You're going to be one of the best buyer agents in our area. And over the time, I saw her grow, and she had become one of the best buying agents in our area. And because we did so many transactions over and over again, and she handled them really well, and we've had a couple of them that actually fell through, but I saw how she handled that whole process. And so I just got to know her a little bit better. And then as we got to know each other, just through conversations, kind of building rapport with each other, it just I was like, hey, I think I want to go out with this lady. I'd been single for quite a few years. I want to go out with her. And so we ended up going out, and it's kind of funny. The two teams that we were on, she was a buyer agent on one of the bigger teams in our area. I was the listing agent on the biggest team in our area. And so, there's sometimes walls against, team and team brokerages or whatever. And so when we went out, I tell you what, of course we posted on social media, hey, we're doing this. And, and because it was an open event. And I tell you, people were watching us like a hawk. They're like, oh my gosh, this person and that person's going out together, and they're from here and they're from there. And it was crazy, but we had so many things that we aligned. And another thing that I really loved was, with her being in the real estate, I knew that she understood my schedule. Right. And so our first actual date that we went out, she came in with her laptop and she says, hey, wait a second, I got to write this offer real quick, because she'd been out on showings. And I loved it, right? I absolutely loved it. And so there it just kind of progressed and got engaged, got married. So then when we got to our whole intention was we both ended up, leaving our teams. And we actually, when we're together, we stayed at our teams because we liked our teams, right? But then when we got married, we left our teams and we were just doing our own thing, just both of us, right? And so we started getting calls, or I was getting calls from agents that said, hey, if you ever look for an agent, if you guys are going to have a team, I'd love to jump in on your team. And we were like, no, we're not ready for that. No, we're not going to do that. That was not in the plans. It was not on my radar at all. But we just kept getting asked. And again, because I knew all the agents and I had great relationships with people. As one of my big things is just, keeping good relationships with other agents. And finally we were getting busier and busier. And I thought, let's try this out. What if we brought in an agent and see how this looked? So that was 4 years ago, and here we are at 20 agents now. Things really grew. It's been a lot of learning lessons. But what you do here, Matt, is one of the biggest lessons I teach my agents on a consistent basis. And I know we're going to dive more into that, but talking about the behind the scenes, I want them to have that quality of life. It's not about just grinding and getting the numbers and getting a paycheck. There's a reason you're doing it, right? And you don't want to lose it, right?
Yeah. Before we get into that, I want to hear a little bit more about how you and Hannah navigate this partnership, right? Because as a married couple that's also in business together, one of the dangers is that you never turn it off and you're always talking shop. How do you guys intentionally create that disconnect? What are some of the things that you've put in place to protect the you time? Right, that you and Hannah time that you either have discovered or are looking to develop and build in your current relationship?
So oh my gosh, there's so many things here. So we'll go into, like, one of the things we do is we have a date night, committed date nights every Thursday night. Everybody on my team knows it. Actually, other agents even know it. It's funny. We'll get a text or a call or something like that, and we're on date night and we don't respond to it. And then right after that, we'll get another text. Oh yeah, I forgot you're on date night. Right. So, this is how solid we are with this. Like, everybody knows it.
You set the expectation and people know
yes.
it. Love that.
But one of the challenges, like you're mentioning, Matt, so we live together. We go to work together, and she has different roles than I do, but we go to work together. We're on the same team. We're working with the same agents. When we come home, it's like, okay, honey, what did you do today? Or how was your day? What are we going to talk about? Work. Right. But the thing is, it's our work. So when we go on date night, it is so hard to not talk about work. And so what we've done is we definitely minimize that. We don't just not talk about work because it is part of our day, but we shift it instead of, like production or anything like that. It's more of, how are you feeling? Right. Getting into the heart. Right. And so we can have that connection is like the main thing. And we've played games too. It's like, okay, we're driving to the restaurant, pulling into the parking lot. Okay, how long can we go without talking about work? And just making it fun. And I think the first time we did it was 15 seconds. It didn't last very long. But the key thing is, we have, even when work comes up, we shift it, right? It's not production. It's not trying to elevate what we're doing. It's how are you doing? How are you feeling? And are you overwhelmed, or do you need support? But again, we're not even getting into the strategy, right? And that has been a huge game changer for us, because before we started doing the date night, there was a lot of chaos with work. There was really no separation and everything. It was just constantly talking about work. And we never felt like we had, even though we lived together, worked together, all this stuff together, we didn't feel like we had a good connection, right? Our connection was dwindling down. But then when we started doing the date night and started setting boundaries around the date night, things started getting a lot better. And now it's almost like we get a moment and go out like another night in a week, or just a lunch or whatever. We treat it like date night, right? It's like, okay, now we're connecting. This is how we're going to connect. We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about that. And so that's been a huge shift for us. And it took a long time though. It was quite a process to figure that out.
Very cool. Very cool. It's interesting. You keep bringing up the word connection, right? And it's in the name of your team, right? The home connection. So it seems like connection's a theme for you.
Yes. Yep. It is very, very much a theme. So when this was how we even came up with the name, just so you kind of learn a little bit about both, and both of us were aligned in this. like there's many teams, and this is now not saying anything bad about other teams, but many teams, they start out and they're named after the team leader. Right. And that could be just because maybe that team leader never thought they were going to have a team, and it just kind of morphed into that. But the challenge that we saw, especially with us being on teams, when we sold anything, we never got any recognition. It was always the team leader. We were doing all the work, but the team leader got all the recognition. So when we started our team, that was one of the first things we said: we are not going to do that to our agents. We want them to have that recognition for the work that they do. And so we were trying to think of, what's a name that we can have. We did not want it to be my name. I didn't want it to be Hannah's name or a combination, nothing like that. And so we're struggling like anybody does when you're trying to think of a new name for something. We went out on a run, like you mentioned, we're into fitness. So we went out on a run one day, and I said, watch, I said, when we get back from this run, we're going to have our name. And sure enough, because, when you exercise, it kicks in some creative juices, right? So we go out on this run, come back, and boom, we had like 4, 5, 6 names, and it kind of dwarfed into Home Connection. And it is because we feel like we're connectors. Right. In real estate, and it's buyers, sellers. Yes. It's also agents. We're constantly bringing people together and even vendors. And it just, as soon as that name came out, the Home Connection, it was like, yes, that's it. That's what we want it to be. And even our logo, it's got this circle around the Home Connection. Is because, again, what does the circle symbolize? It's never ending, right? It's an ongoing process, ongoing cycle, right? And so that's just a little bit about us and how we kind of came up with that.
No, I love one of the things that you kind of slid in there, and I want to make sure everybody who's listening paid attention, is that use a really tactical technique around changing your state, right? Going on a workout with intention. So having that intention at the beginning of the workout, saying, okay, by the end of this workout, we're going to have our name. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of intentionally changing your state and then like attacking a problem subconsciously or unconsciously, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so smart that you guys did that, even just intuitively as well. So, so speaking of health and your physical and your mental health, look, you're obviously really clearly dedicated to fitness. I saw, congrats on your Murph yesterday.
I'm still sore.
Still paying for it. And yet, being dedicated to fitness and even coaching others around fitness, for the high achieving person that's listening, that says, look, I don't have time to work out. How do you reframe fitness as an essential part of your business rather than just a distraction from it?
Yeah. So what with fitness and I went through those phases where thinking it was a distraction, and over time, I just felt like my body was getting weaker and weaker. My mental clarity was not as sharp. And so I got back into the fitness and keeping it as a routine. It can be a challenge in our business because of, the different directions we go many times. But so that's actually one of the reasons that I teach a class. I teach 2 classes a week. It keeps me there. It holds me accountable. Like if I don't show up, I just let a group of people down. So I'm there at least twice a week teaching a class. And then from there, I just got to get a couple more workouts again, on my own, which I can do that. Right. But the thing is, like what I found with the doing the workouts, there's so many things that happens in your mind and in your body, right? You feel better. Your mental clarity, like the blood rush, there's the adrenaline you bring into your work. There's so many things that happens with a workout. It is a necessity, right? If you're not, and you don't have to work out like I work out. I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder. I do like more endurance things and I like high intensity stuff. But whatever it is, you could be just going out on walks outside, right? Just good brisk walk, get in the fresh air. That will kick in so many creative juices, so many things that can happen, just like going on that run. I know that happens to me. And so if there is some things that I'm stuck on, I'll go out on a run and the answer typically comes. And if it doesn't come then, it's triggering the process where it's going to come really soon. And when I say really soon, usually it's within a day or two. Right. And so I see fitness is super important. And what's the example I go back to my kids. What's the example I'm giving my kids? Right. They used to complain about me working out, like they never wanted to work out. They're not fitness or anything like that. But now my youngest daughter, she's 19 now. Every Saturday we get together and work out. Right. So it's become a special bonding time for us. So now she's at that phase where she wants to work out and she's seen the example that I've set. So now again, it's turned into a family thing. And those are some of the most special times that I have with her.
I love that. I love
I'm
able to integrate that.
yeah. And when you're talking about creativity, if I want to throw out some other things like because we can get busy, and we think it's so important to stay like in the business, working on tweaking this system, helping that agent, what can I do to improve this or this or that? Sometimes the best thing to do is to step away to get that improvement, right? One of the things that I do, and I quit doing this for quite a while, and I fairly recently, probably a few months ago, I started doing this again, is drawing. I used to love to draw, right? So I've been drawing more lately. And then with the drawing, I've noticed that like when I'm teaching, like, doing our team meetings, teaching, doing presentations, my creativity is a much higher level now. And I bring that back to, because I am kicking in my creative juices in other areas, but I do have to make time for that, right? If I'm not taking it, and it doesn't, and this is a thing that many people probably think is, I don't have time. Do you have 15 minutes? I mean, you can sit down with 15 minutes and sketch something. If you're not a drawer, it could be music. It could be, just whatever to kick in those creative juices. You don't need a long time. Even like those brisk walk I mentioned, 20 minutes, 15, 20-minute brisk walk is all you really need, right? And it'll make a huge change in just the way you see your life and your business.
No, I love that. How do you incorporate, along with your physical health? I know the one part that we don't talk about enough is our intentionality around mental health. What are some of the techniques or things that you do? And I know that working out is a huge part of it. Is there anything specifically that you do to manage or maintain your own mental health?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I do, and this is a lesson that took me years to learn, and I teach it to all my agents. It's actually one of the first lessons I teach my agents. Yes, we would teach them scripts and all those primary things for running their business. But the key thing, I don't care how good you are at open houses, I don't care how good you are on the phone, right? If you don't have that emotional stability and a great communicator, you're going to struggle. Okay. So one of the things that I have taught my agents is don't take anything personal, right? That is the biggest thing. So I've learned that. And again, it took me a long time, and it's not that I don't care. That is so far from it, but I don't take it personal. When I'm dealing with a difficult client, let's say, and they may be lashing out on me, one of the things I've learned is like, okay, they just probably need a vent. Let me give them some space so they can vent, but I don't take it personal. And once they vent, they feel better. And then we move on to where we need to go. Right. But most agents, they take it personal. Like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a terrible job. I can't do this. I can't work with this person. This person's awful. No, they're having a bad day. Buying a home is stressful. If you're selling and buying, it's times 10, right? It's a very stressful process. And as agents, we sometimes forget about that. Right. And I love it when my agents buy a house, when they Will, I didn't realize this is what they're going through. Yes. Now, now you can have some more sympathy for them. Right. But don't take things personal. That's how I keep my emotional state more grounded. I don't take it personal. I can step back and then I can better serve that way. And then other things that I'll do is I'll meditate, do some deep breathing, music sometimes, or even journaling. But I'd say that the meditation is probably, the deep breathing is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. I was just giggling back there for a second because your story instantly reminded me of something that I taught my daughters as little kids. They were like maybe 3 years old and 7 years old, and we would be driving and somebody would cut us off in the highway or speeding or whatever. And normally my response would be something not like emotionally regulated and grounded in calmness and peace. And so one of the ways that I would keep myself calm is somebody would cut us off and our kids would be like, and I'm like, it's okay. They must really have to poop. They just have to, look, they obviously have to poop and they're just trying to get there. And it's a poop emergency. And like, they still say that today. They're 13 and 16 and we're driving around and someone will cut us off. And I just let it go. Cause look, everyone is going through their life, their experience, and you don't know what just happened. That person may have just gotten a call that there's a medical emergency somewhere at their kid's school or something, and like they're just trying to get there as soon as possible. So it's never personal. It's never about you. Somebody's going through something that we just don't know about. And like, I think we just need to give people grace and mind our business and stay in our own lane. Right. Like, even when I was calling prospects and looking to help them, like when somebody's like bristly or like coming at you a certain way, it has nothing to do with you. They don't know you. They don't know that you're like, they have no idea that you can actually help them. And the way they're responding is just a reflection of something that they're going through. And the people that respond the most aggressively are the ones that need the most help. And so your story just reminded me of like that little lesson that I share with my kids. And now that my daughter drives, like she's just cool. She's like, yeah, no, she goes, I don't take it personally. People are honking at me or whatever, and they just got to poop.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Yeah, and it is like if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, yeah, I definitely take things personal. I have a hard time with that. I'm just like I just care so much. That's what I hear a lot of times. Agents say, well, I just care so much. You can care and not take things personal, right?
Yeah.
Those are two different things, right? And I have been one. When you talk about somebody cutting you off, I have been a road rage person where I've chased people down. So I've had to really, learn to regulate my emotional state. So I've been out there on the way in.
So yeah. So when did that flip for you? Because that's it. That's an interesting, like, thanks for sharing that. And like, not everybody would want to admit that, right? And so like, when did that switch for you?
I think it was a process of just seeing how I was like let's say kind of intense and in conflict. Right. And so I kept seeing myself like in these conflict, and my stress level is really high, constantly high. And it seemed like there wasn't enough workouts to get it down. And because I was just so, wired, not wired, I was just so twisted, I would say. And so it took a process and it took other people seeing that in me and noticing it. And so through that, then, learning, okay, books and reading, things like that, not taking things personal, take a step back, breathe, box breathing, whatever that is that works for you. And again, it was a process, right? It did not happen overnight. I wish I could have said, oh yeah, don't take it personal. Boom, I'm done. No more.
Easy.
It did not. It's a process. Yeah, very much so.
So let's shift gears back to the team. I want you to kind of walk us through a little bit of your business presence, right? So leading a 20-member team, look, it requires a level of communication and intentionality that many don't have naturally. You got to develop it, right? So how do you create the boundaries for yourself so that your team feels supported, but your phone isn't stealing presence from you and your family? How do you balance and navigate being the CEO, being the leader, the coach of all of these agents, and then also, fulfilling your responsibilities to your family and yourself?
Yeah. So some of the things that we've done and through this process, and again, it's been a learning process. I was like the hey, you got a minute, person, because I was the team lead and everybody kept coming to me, and it was getting pretty overwhelming. So we created some systems, and our team is, like I said, we're about 4 years old. And so most all of our agents are newer agents, right? So there's a lot that they need to learn, and I'm the most experienced one. So, it was just natural they would keep coming to me. And so I had to start setting boundaries. Like, let's say the date night was one, and communicated that with them. We have a chat system where everybody's in it. And we call it our party chat because it has to be fun, right? And so we have our party chat where everybody jumps in. So if an agent has a question, another agent, I don't care how new they are, they can answer that question, right? Oh yeah, I just ran into that. And then they answer the question. So now it takes it off my plate. Now I keep an eye on it and monitor it, make sure answers are correct, but also it gives them, the agent that was, even if, like I said, if they're a newer agent, it gives them like this feeling of empowerment. Hey, I was able to chime in. I was able to help somebody, right? And that's one of the key things with having a team. You want people to be able to collaborate, help each other. It's one of the keys. For a while, I did like an office hours, and I stopped doing that because I didn't feel like it was really needed. And so I communicated with the team, hey, if you got questions, I want you to ask me, but it has to be between this time and this time. And I did it for every day of the week, but I had a 30-minute slot in the morning and I had a 30-minute slot in the afternoon. And so and I had to train them, teach them to utilize those slots because they kept thinking, I don't know, I got, this is an emergency. I got to talk to Will now. I wouldn't respond. And then when that slot opened up, then I would respond to them. And so then they learned, that actually taught them some more regulation themselves. Like, okay, did I have to really do that right then? I was able to wait an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is. And so that totally changed the whole game of our team. Now it's funny. I just had an agent a couple weeks ago. She called me, and we were kind of playing phone tag a little bit. But I know when she calls me, she, has a question. She needs some help. And so I finally got a hold of her, and I said, "Hey, I'm sorry it took me so long to give you a call back." And she says, "Oh no, I know you'll get back to me when you can." Right. So she's learned, that, hey, Will's busy. He's got this going on. I am important to him, and he will call me back. Right. And I loved hearing that. She validated what I wanted her to know, and that she is important. Right. And so she knew that, and she expressed that in that way. So that was great. So that's some of the things that we do on our team. We have the other team members that are able to collaborate, help them out. And then I'd have time slots. But again, I did get away with the time slots because they're not coming to me so much anymore.
Yeah. So as their coach, right, as someone who is helping lead these early entrepreneurs in their business, what's the most common roadblock that you see with them that prevents them from being fully present in their business? Where do you see them beginning to develop these habits of the entrepreneurial regret cycle?
That is, so there's a couple things that happens when an agent is new. Number one, they actually take too much freedom time, but it's not focused on family. It's the weirdest thing that I see. They don't really get into doing the work. So there's one of the stumbling blocks. The other piece is that they think they have to jump at everything. And so when they start jumping, being that what we used to call that Pop-Tart realtor, I don't know if that's a term anymore, but they will jump at, like I said, jump at everything, answering every call. And I've had to teach them to slow down and like, okay, like I'll have an agent, they'll give me a call. Hey, they were asking this and then that. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Did you get all the questions out? Well, no, they said this, I got this answer. Then they asked this, saying, whoa, you got to slow down. You got to get all it. And so like protecting your time, right? You don't want to keep going back and forth. Right. And so new agents, because they don't know that much, they think that's what they're there to do. Like they have this server mentality, and we do serve, but we can do it in a way. Like say you go to a restaurant, they're going to bring your whole meal out at once. They're not going to bring the steak out and then the lettuce, the salad later, and then the potato later. They're putting it out on one plate. We want to do the same thing. And so agents really have to learn how to bring it all together. Like if they've got, they're answering questions, bring that in together, ask everything. Even if there are things that you don't think is an issue, go ahead and ask questions, right? You're building rapport doing it anyway. Just ask a bunch of questions and set boundaries. Here's the other thing. Like, oh, they want to see the house in 20 minutes and I got to blah, blah, blah. And like, okay, did you give them options on times? They probably think that you're there waiting for them. They don't understand our job, what's on the other end. And so did you give them options? Hey, I can't do it in 20 minutes, but can you do it 6 o'clock tonight? Or can we go do it tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Or, did you give them any options? Well, no, I just thought, no. Okay. Give them options. Like, so there's so many things that they don't understand that they do. So they don't really value their time yet. And once they start valuing their time, and you have to be taught how to value your time. One of the best things that can happen is you get super busy. Then you have to really hone in on what's most important, what's not important. But what usually happens is what's important that gets left out is family, right? So when you start getting busy, you start setting those boundaries, then you can create a system. That's the key. And actually, we were just talking about that in our team meeting today because school just left out. We just let out. We had Memorial Weekend. We had an extra day off. Yeah. So kids are going to different places. First thing I have to have this conversation every year about now and when school starts back up and Christmas. Those are the 3 times I hone in on talking about schedules, right? So important. Like, what does your schedule look like? You're falling off your schedule right now. You got to get back in, right? And so what's that? And then we talked about like communication with your family. Do you need additional support now that this has changed? Who is it? Have you communicated it with them? Right. And I'm really, 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 really big on that. And another thing with new agents, and they do scratch their head on this one. When we sit down, we start setting their goals. Okay, what's your income goal and this and that? I will ask them, okay, when's your vacation? And they're like, well, I haven't even made any money, but I want to know when you're going on vacation, right? When you start getting busy, you're going to need that time off. I don't care if it's just a weekend. I don't care if you go out of town or stay in town. When's your time off? I want you to take a deliberate time off. And so that's another big piece that, quite frankly, I was never taught that, even being on a team. It was grind, 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 grind. You know, hey, you make more money, great, you can do more things. Well, yeah, I can do more things, but I don't do more things because I'm constantly working.
Yeah, there's a thing about the word grind. If you just keep grinding, at the end of the day, there's nothing left. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If all you do is grind, the only thing that's left is powder. Those are some really, really, really good tips, especially the planning, the family, the vacation, the me time first, and then building a life, building your business around that. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see as well with a lot of new entrepreneurs coming in. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned in some of the questions that I sent you up earlier, you brought up the book Never Split the Difference with Chris Voss.
Mm-hmm.
So what was important about that book, and how have those ideas, tactics, and skills from that book, how have they helped you along the way of building a life of no regrets?
Yeah, I absolutely love that book. And anytime anybody asks me for a book recommendation, that's where I go to. And because our business is all about communication, right? I cannot say it loud enough. It's all about communication. I don't care how good you are, how many leads you get fed, whatever. Communication is the key. Your clients, other agents, our family. And so when I read Never Split the Difference, he really honed in on he talked about the like black swans and the audits and accusation audits. I was like, holy cow, these are areas that I have been afraid to get into. Right. When you talk about an accusation audit, you just get out there and just start throwing out a bunch of stuff. He says, you don't even have to be right about it. They will correct you. But then when they correct you, they're going to tell you what the real issue is. I remember the first time I did that, I thought, okay, because you have to do it, right? You got to try it. Does this really work? And I had a little bit of a challenge with one of my clients. And so I started doing the accusation audit. I was scared to death. I felt so uncomfortable doing it. But they stopped me, they corrected me, and then
give an example for someone who hasn't read the book or doesn't
know
what that is exactly.
So,
what's an example of an accusation?
Okay, so let's say you feel some tension with your client. All right, you feel a little bit of tension. All right, you're not sure what it is. All right, accusation audit. Basically, you're going to say a bunch of what we call, I guess, negative things. We would call negative things that, and you're basically testing them to see if that's accurate or not because they're afraid to say it. Right. Most people are afraid to, hurt somebody else's feelings. Like, okay, well, I don't think you've got my best interest at heart here. Right. I think I'm trying to get the deal done. I know the steps that need to happen, but they might think I'm not really working for them. Right. Mm-hmm. And I have heard that statement many times in the past years until I learned to communicate better. And so an accusation audit is like, okay, Matt, hey, you probably think that, I'm don't really care about your situation. You might be thinking that, I'm working for the buyer and trying to do this. And so I'm just throwing out things like that. Right. And so what happens is they will start to get uncomfortable because some of it's not true. They don't want me to think that. Right. And so they will correct me. And so that first time I did it, that's exactly what happened. They corrected me. But what came out, and I can't remember the situation, but they corrected me and said what their issue was. And once I knew what that was, then we can talk about it. Like we could deal with it. Right. And it totally changed that transaction and my connection with that client. So Never Split the Difference. I think that is a definitely go-to book because again, as real estate agents, communication is so key. I mean, absolutely key. When we talk about clients, we talk about our family, other agents, vendors. I mean, all of those are in our wheelhouse, right? How do we communicate with them? And I know so many agents that they don't care. They're just trying to get the deal done, or they don't care who they hurt, who they plow through. And agents don't want to work with those agents, right? They try to avoid that. And that's not how I do business, right? And I want everybody to want to work with me because ultimately I know that's better for my client. And it's going back to family. It's better for my family. If I've got an agent that wants to work with me, when I'm taking family time, guess what? Hey, that's okay. I get that, Will. Yeah, you're a great guy or whatever, right? And they want me to have that, right? And they know that I'll get back to them because I'm trustworthy with them, because of our past, relationship.
Love that. No, that's really cool. And putting it into practice, it's one of those things that makes you different, right? Like and I'm sharing that with you as a compliment, right? For someone who have the privilege of getting to work with you and on some things, is that you put things into action. A lot of times it's one of the biggest challenges I see with some people is their inability to put new ideas into practice and move forward with it. So you do that really, really well. Kind of putting it all together here for those that are listening, right? When thinking about the 3 pillars of a life of no regrets, right? With the leadership, your love, like your personal relationships, and then with your life, your physical and your mental health, what would you say is your biggest takeaway or your biggest lesson around course correcting or reversing a life that may look great on paper, but doesn't look good anywhere else?
Yeah, the course correct. Oh gosh. So in real estate, here's one of the things that I think all real estate agents know this, right? We like to put out like that we're doing great all the time, right? And the truth be told, our families could be falling apart. We could be running a team that, it looks great on the outside, but it's not profitable, right? It's actually digging us into a hole. And so one of the things that I have had to do with that course correction is believe in myself. That's one of the biggest things is, believing in myself, knowing that I have value and can take care of whatever it is that's in front of me. Right. And so with having that, so like a lot of times we get into a scarcity mindset, and I've been there, right? I had the scarcity mindset and thinking I had to be that Pop-Tart realtor, jump at everything, leaving the people behind that I love. But making that shift. And again, it's been like all these little things so many times, over the years, and getting tired of being in that same situation. Right. And then once you start making some of those shifts and you see the results, then it empowers you to make bigger shifts. And so that's like, I'm in a place now, I make big shifts. Right. And so I teach other agents, like I teach a lot of agents in our area, how to have a better quality of life. I'll give you an example. One of the things, like when I was on another team, we did not have a system for vacation time. Right. The team lead believed that, that the agent was the only one that could take care of their own clients, the one that knew all the history and this and that. So when we went on vacation, we were expected to deal with all of our files and deal with everything. Now, I became a senior agent over there and we had quite a few other listing agents underneath me. And so I'm like, okay, I'm tired of that. I don't think it has to be that way. So I developed a vacation system. Right. When you go on vacation, this is how we're going to do this. And so he was a little nervous about it, but it worked, right? And so when agents went on vacation, they were actually able to focus on their family and their downtime and actually having that better quality of life. And I remember there was like one time not my client, it was another agent, was on vacation. The seller lost their phone. No, I couldn't get a hold of them. I can't remember what the situation was. I think we had an offer. I couldn't even get a hold of the seller. There was no way. I'm sending emails. This seller was actually on vacation themselves, and they lost their phone while they're on vacation. It's funny. The team lead was panicked. He's like, well, you got to call the agent. I said, no, I can't get a hold of them. Why do you think they'll be able to get a hold of them? And so I eventually did call the agent, and he said, yeah, I don't know what else to do. I hated making that call. Right? Because I knew I was taking something away and I did not want them to worry about it. And then so finally that seller called me. Hey, I'm sorry. I lost my phone. Everything was fine. Right? Once we got all the connections and put together, everything was fine. Right? But I hated making that call to my fellow agent, taking away from the vacation. I didn't want them to worry about it. Right? So there's so many things there's so many little things that we can do that has a huge difference in our lives. So again, like if you're looking at taking a vacation, I don't care if you're a single agent or on a team. Do you have somebody, multiple people that can cover for you, right? And do you have a system set up for that, right? You really want to look at your business as a business. When you work at any other job, you go on vacation, you're on vacation, right? You clock out, you're gone. They're not calling you for the most part. For real estate, for some reason, it seems like that's not allowed, and it is allowed, right? But again, it goes into this scarcity mindset that many agents have. I feel like I have an abundance mindset now, and it took me a long time to get there, but I have an abundance mindset. If I miss a deal, I'm not worried about it. There's another deal coming, right? If I get a client that's upset, I'm not so much worried about that either, because I know I have the skill set to turn that around, right? If I make a mistake with my family, right? Now they know that I will own up to it and make a course correction, right? So I had built enough trust in all these different arenas and in myself to know that, hey, things will be fine. I've been doing this 20 years, so I haven't been knocked out yet. So everything's good. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm going to tell you, I haven't made any mistakes. I have made a lot of mistakes over the years. That's how I've gotten to where I am today.
Awesome, man. And you've done a great job, right? And I'm just grateful that you had the willingness to be on the podcast here. Will, if the conversation resonated with somebody listening, where could they reach out? Where could they connect with you outside of here?
Yeah, I'll give you our Facebook, the Home Connection EXP. So you can find us there. You can even call me. I'll give you my number, 309-224-9977. And I want to throw out one more quick thing, Matt, because I actually heard you talk about this and it resonated with me at such a high level. Is you're talking about the 5 standards, right? The standards of the 5 people. Oh, yeah. That is another thing that's really helped me with leveling up, right? When you think about, we all hear about the 5 people you hang out with having the biggest impact on you. It's the standards, right? Once you told me that and I got that, I'm like, yeah, you're right. That's how I've been able to level up based on these people, their standards that they had. It caused me to level up my standards. So wherever you're at in your career, look at what their standards are for family, for work, and do you want them in that circle? I'm not saying you can't be associated with them, but do you want them in that close of the circle? Maybe you do. Maybe you want to lean in a little bit more, right? Maybe you need to find more of that in other circles and get into that and lean into it. It will change your life.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. And having a powerful board of directors is everything. And like you had mentioned, it's not about being the average of the people that you surround yourself with. It's choosing people that are willing to hold you to the standard and giving them permission to hold you to account. Man, no, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming out on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Tell Hannah we said hello. Maybe next time we'll have you guys both on for like a couples edition.
Oh, she would love that. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to the No Regrets Blueprint podcast. Listen, if you got value out of today's episode, just click the like, subscribe, share this with somebody that you think would get something out of this. And if you know anybody who'd be an amazing guest on the podcast, we'd love to meet them. Feel free to drop us a comment or shoot us a message and we'll have them on. All right. I'm Matt Levchenko. Take care, guys.
Remember, the goal isn't just success. It's building a life you'll never regret. If this episode impacted you, share it with someone chasing more. And I'll see you next time on the No Regrets Blueprint.